Join me today as we talk about the final George Romero zombie movie, Twilight of the Dead. This is the Geek Cabal channel. My name's Bobbie, and we're going to talk about Twilight of the Dead. I came across an article, which, if I still have it, I'll link it in the description. But it appears that George Romero, before he passed, which was a decade ago now, I think, wrote at least a first draft of a script for a final zombie movie that was titled Twilight of the Dead. And there's been some movement on it now. It appears that Milla Jovovich of Resident Evil fame has been cast as one of the characters in the movie. And there's another person listed on the IMDb, and there's a director listed. The director, I should have written down his name, apologize. Looks like he's directed a lot of episodes of TV shows. I don't know if I've seen the specific episodes. Well, I guess I would have to in the case of Peacemaker, because I saw the whole show. But I saw some credits also for like Boardwalk Empire, Homicide, Life on the Street, a few other HBO shows like that. And, like Boardwalk Empire, there were other HBO shows like that one. Homicide, Life on the Street wasn't an HBO show. It's actually kind of a precursor to Law & Order, for those of you that don't know. And I think it's on one of the streaming services now. So, you can actually see the other half of the crossover episodes of Law & Order now. Also, where Richard Belzer's character from Law & Order SVU came from. Originally was from Homicide, Life on the Street, and it's the same, not just the same actor with a similar demeanor. It's the same character. He moved to New York and joined the SVU. So he's got some credits to his name. I haven't seen any of the movies that he was credited with, so I don't know as far as like horror if he's the guy or not. I hope so, because this is this would be a final testament to Romero's vision, so to speak. Now, I don't know if this is a big studio movie, because for those of you who know much about Romero's movies, the first three zombie movies and the last two were all not self-financed, but he went out and got the money for the movies, and they were not studio affairs. Land of the Dead is the one that is, and I mean, you see it's got production value and whatnot and stars, but Romero didn't like working within the studio system. He preferred to have creative control, which is understandable, and it's just that few directors can manage to do it. It's like him and George Lucas, basically. But George Lucas is because he was able to self-fund the prequel trilogy, making them some of the most successful privately funded movies in existence. So the only things we know about the plot so far is it appears, at least in the first draft, I don't know what's going to happen in revisions, which are obviously going to happen because they happen with every script. But we don't know what the driving force will be. Like, is it for budget reasons, or things got to be changed around? Is it, well, that just won't work in, for modern audiences, which I really, truly hope they do not give a single solitary shit about. Because you just dumb down movies when you do that. So, and Romero's movies are not dumbed down. Like, they all have various critiques built into them, and they are what he wanted them to be, ultimately. So, but the casting of Milla Jovovich tells me this is probably being produced by a studio. I know from the article that his ex-wife, who kind of oversees I think it was called the George Romero Institute. I could be wrong. Again, I'll link the article. which I'm assuming oversees, his affairs and his, former movies, and if there's any other scripts laying around, things like that. And she seems pretty excited for things, so I'm willing to go out on a limb there. But it appears that the plot is that there's basically not a whole lot of people left, and they are on an island, and they are being besieged, attacked, what have you, by different factions of the dead. So if that's the case, then this is definitely like a continuation of the through line that starts in the original Night of the Living Dead, where you have, I think it's the very first zombie that we come across, tries to get into Barbara's car unsuccessfully, and then looks down, sees, I don't remember if it's a brick or a rock, picks it up and uses it to break the window, or try to break the window. It's been a long time since I've seen it. And but the point is, it's tool usage right there, first zombie. So they're not just brain dead eating machines. Okay, and then you go to Dawn of the Dead, and the characters speculate that there's something about them all that the people remember, the zombies remember. There's some spark of intelligence in there, like that this thing was important to them, or that they know there's a bunch of people there, because there were people there in their life. And I mean, admittedly, it's speculation from characters that, have no clue, but it continues to plant that seed, which we then see come to fruition in Day of the Dead with Bub, who the scientist there is training him to be able to use tools and everything else. And then in Land of the Dead, we see it really come into its own with Big Daddy actually like recognizing the humans as threats, realizing how to use the tools, organizing the zombies to follow him and to go attack the city, realizing that's where the people are coming from because the lights are still on. And so like that, so a lot happens in that one. And we even get a little bit of it in Survival of the Dead, where the one woman is a zombie but is still riding her horse, and which is kind of amazing because then at the end of the movie the zombies actually start eating the horse. So the fact she wasn't up to that point and was still riding it, there's something still going on up there. So if there are in fact two different groups of the undead, the living dead, then there's probably more of that intelligence has come through and they've organized somehow into factions. Or it's literally just, that they're more like lower primates and they're territorial or something. There's a lot of different ways it could go. And I do kind of wonder if these people be the spiritual successors to the survivors from Day of the Dead, since they fled to a tropical island at the end of the movie. Or if they'll be the people somehow related to the people from Land of the Dead. I mean, probably not, because we don't really see... Okay, there is an exception to what I'm about to say, but we don't really see these characters ever really show up in the other movies. Now, the exception being this one particular military character who is one of the guards outside the wall, like where they park Dead Reckoning in Land of the Dead, and then he plays other military people in Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead, and it's supposed to be the same character, and those two movies are kind of like his odyssey on the way to eventually being in there in Land of the Dead, because those two movies are at the very beginning of the outbreak, whereas Land of the Dead is several years later. So yeah, I mean, that's obviously speculation on my part as to how that'll all play out, but and there's, unfortunately, there's no, like, I don't think there was an estimated time when we'd see it out. Presumably it'll be in theaters. I hope so, because only one of those movies has come out since I've been old enough to go watch them, and actually came out in a theater, and that was Land of the Dead, and I did go see it in a theater. Whereas Survival of the Dead and Diary of the Dead were straight to video, and 2 of the other 3 came out before I was even born. So, however, given that they keep running some of these movies on their anniversaries and everything, I do hope to eventually see Dawn of the Dead at least in a theater. Didn't work out on timing. It actually, I think, was in a theater. I think it was in theaters earlier this year, but there was just no way I was going to be able to go see it when it came out, which really sucked. But oh well. Hope maybe with the release of this one, some of the others will show up. I could take or leave the original Night of the Living Dead as far as going to watch it in a theater. Like, you know, for the significance and everything, I would, but I'd honestly prefer to see the color remake from the early 90s. That's just me, though. Also, that one features Tony Todd, who is unfortunately now the late, great Tony Todd. He apparently passed away a few days ago. Definitely a horror movie icon there. So, anyway, let me know what you folks think down in the comments. Is it, like, do you think it's going to work out, trying to posthumously rework the script in whatever they have to do to make it, you know, to make it filmable, and then film it without George actually being there, you know? Or is this all just a foolish endeavor to cash in on a name? Is it a good sign or a bad sign that we have Mila Jovovich, who helmed the Resident Evil franchise, which is not an even remotely serious zombie franchise, but did manage to have 6 movies? So, you know, I guess we'll have to see how she does without her husband being the director. Pretty sure she's married to Paul Anderson. Anyway, doesn't matter. So, like I said, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Something to look forward to, something to cringe about, maybe a bit of both. Who knows? But like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Sharing and commenting are the best ways to help grow the channel, and we appreciate it. But other than that, just remember, when there's no more room in hell, the dead will walk the earth.